Hi, we from Group 4. We will present Chapter 4 about the research process tree. So first is definition. Causal research, also known as explanatory research, is a type of research design used to determine whether one or more variable cause or directly affect one or more outcome variable. It goes beyond merely describing phenomena or exploring correlation. It seeks to establish clear cause and effect relationship. Evidence for causality to confidently say that one variable X causes a change in another variable Y. Researchers must gather strong evidence based on 4 key criteria. First is correlation. What this means, there must be a demonstrated relationship between the variable X and Y must vary together in a predictable way. Example, if an increase in advertising S is consistently followed by an increase in sale Y. Thus, correlation purpose show there are association, but it doesn't prove causal by itself. Caution, correlation alone does not imply causation. Second is time order of occurrence. What it means, the cause X must occur before the effect Y. Example, if a marketing campaign starts in January and sales reach in February, it supports the idea that the campaign might have influenced the sale. Purpose have rules out the possibility that Y is actually causing X. Caution, without correct time sequencing, conclusions about causality are unreliable. So 3 is elimination of other possible causal factor. What it means, all other potential explaining for the change in Y must be ruled out. Example, if sales increase after an ad campaign, was it really the ad, or could it have been due to a holiday seasons, price drop, or competitors' issues? How is it done? Through controller experiment by statistical control. Purpose for to isolate the effect of X as the only possible causes. So for number 4 is logical explanations. What it means, there should be a sound, logical or theoretical rational explaining why X should cause Y. Example, more advertising increase product awareness which lead to more purchase. This makes logical and theoretical sense. Purpose, provide credibility and strength the causal argument, especially when supported by prior research or theory. Without it, even if data show correlation, the lack of plausible mechanized weakness the claim of causality. So for experiment, a key method in causal research, an experiment is a structured and systematic data collection method where the researchers manipulate one or more independent variables to observe the effect on dependent variable, while controlling for others variables that might influence the result. This method is central to causal research as it allows researchers to draw conclusions about what causes what. So 4 key components of an experiment. First is manipulation of the independent variable. So the researchers deliberately change or set the level of the IV to see how it affects the DV. Example, a company tests 2 different advertising methods to measure which one lead to higher customer engagement. Number 2 is measurement of the dependent variable. The DV is the outcome or effect being measured. It should respond to change in the IV. So example is measuring sale, website click, or test score after introducing a change. Number 3 is control of exogenous. So these are factors other than the IV that could influence the DV. The researchers must control or hold constant factor to insulate the effect of the IV. Okay, how cause and effect is established in an experiment. One is by manipulating the IV. Establish the direction of the relationship. Show whether change in the IV lead to change in the DV. Number 2, by controlling for exogenous variable. Ensure that any observed effect on the DV is actually due to the manipulation of the IV and not some other confounding variable. Increase the internal validity of the experiment. By manipulating the IV and controlling for other factors, experiment allow researchers to insulate the specific impact of the IV on the DV. This increases internal validity and strengthens the claim of a cause and effect relationship, which is often the goal in scientific research. Manipulation of the independent variable. In an experiment, manipulation is a key factor that sets it apart from non-experimental method. It refers to the international change researchers made to the independent variable to observe its effect on the dependent variable. First is manipulation. So, definition: the process of creating different level or condition of the IV to examine how change in the IV affect the DV. Purpose: by varying the IV systematically, researchers can observe whether these changes lead to difference in the DV, helping to test a hypothesis. So number 2 is treatment level. So definitions: these are the different category or group within the IV that participants are assigned to. There can be either arbitrarily defined by the researchers or reflect naturally occurring groups, also known as experimental condition or groups. Type is first is arbitrarily created by the researcher for experimental control. Example: low, medium, high stress level. Second is natural pre-existing categories like gender, age group, or professions. So number 3 is evidence for causality. To make a strong claim that the IV causes a change in the DV, researchers need to demonstrate causality. Two key criteria are: first is covariance. There must be a statistically significant difference in the DV across different levels of the IV. These show that the DV varies with change in the IV. In other words, if the group exposed to different levels of the IV have a different outcome, this support a causal link. Example: if student who reaches interactive learning score significantly higher than those in lecture-based instructions, cooperation is present. Second is time order. The IV must occur before the DV in time. This ensures that change in the IV precede and potentially causes change in the DV, not the other way.
So next we continue with understanding experimental design in business research. Let's begin with the definition. The experimental design is a structured method used to determine whether changes in one factor, called independent variable, lead to change in another known as the dependent variable. And the key is the key here is control. By manipulating the independent variable and controlling other influencing factors, we can confidently establish cause and effect relationship. So, why is this important for a business? Well, think about how many decisions business make every day. Launching a new product, adjusting price, investing in employee training, and otherwise, without a reliable way to measure the impact of this action, the decision become guesswork. Experimental design remove that uncertainty. Let me give you a few specific applications. A marketing team may test the effectiveness of a new advertisement. HR may evaluate whether training program improve employee performance or not. The sales team might want to know how changing the price of a product affects consumer purchases. So, how do this process work in practice? Let's take the example of testing a new advertisement. The company will split its customer into two groups. The experimental group, which is exposed to the new ad, and the other group is the control group, which is not shown the ad at all. So in this scenario, the independent variable is the advertisement itself. Because it's the factor we're changing, and the dependent variable is what we are measuring, like customer engagement, click rates, or sales. So by comparing these two groups, any significant difference in the result can likely be attributed to the ad. And that's powerful because it helps company to answer the question: did the ad actually work? So now, why is it essential to have a control group? Because without it, we can't be sure the results are due to our treatment. Maybe sales improve because of seasonal trends, or maybe there was an unrelated promotion happening at the same time. So the control group act as our baseline, so we can isolate the true effect of our invention. So to summarize this, experimental design is not just for scientists in labs. It's a practical, accessible, and incredibly valuable method that business of all sizes can use. It enables them to test ideas, reduce risk, make smarter, evidence-based decision. So when done right, it helps isolate what truly works, cutting through noise and bias, so that every business move is backed by reliable insight. So now let's take a look to the types of experimental design and validity concepts. Specifically, how we structure it to ensure accurate and reliable results. So this slide focuses on the Solomon 4 groups design and some important traits to validity. The first one is, what is Solomon 4 group design? It's a comprehensive experimental setup that combines two basic designs to control for what is called testing bias. This design helps us isolate the effects of a treatment while considering the impact of pre-testing. So basically, it involves 4 groups. The first group is to receive a pre-test, then the treatment, and finally the post-test. The second group is to get the pre-test and the post-test, but not the treatment. Group 3 is skip the pre-test, receive the treatment, and then take the post-test. And last one is receive only the post-test, no pre-test, and no treatment. So why we use this structure? By comparing across this group, we can detect whether the pre-test itself influence the outcome and isolate the true effect of the treatment. And this is particularly useful in business settings where we want to ensure our data is not biased by how we measure it. So let's talk about threats to validity. Things that can distort our result if we are not careful. These 3 external events that happen during the experiment can influence result. For example, a competitor launching a new product might affect our sales figure. The maturation, participants might change naturally over time, like gaining more experience or losing interest. The testing is the very act of taking a pretest might influence behavior on the post-test. The mortality is when participants drop out of the experiment. It can skew the data especially if the dropout is not random. So here's a business example. Let's say we are testing a new pricing strategy. The experimental group, which saw the discounted pricing show a 25% increase in sales, and the control group, which didn't receive the discount, show only 5% increase, likely due to regular growth or seasonal factors. And this clear difference help us isolate the treatment effect. In this case, the effect of this discount. And finally, the key takeaway. By using well-structured experimental design, like Solomon for groups, it's help business make data-driven decisions while minimizing bias and maximizing reliability. It's anxious we are not just seeing what we want to see, but what's actually happening as a result of our business interventions.
Hi everyone, my name is Nia Starisha and I will be talking about the exogenous variables. Exogenous variable is an important concept in research and experiment, especially in business research method. So what exactly are exogenous variable? They are basically an external factor, things that are not part of our main focus in research, but they can still change or influence the outcome. For example, if you are trying to test about a new teaching method, but if some of your students already had an extra tutoring before the study began, so that's an exogenous factor that could affect your result. So why is this exogenous variable is important? Because if we don't control this variable, our data could be misleading. We might think that our independent variable is causing a change, but actually it's something else in the background. So these exogenous variables are usually categorized into two types. First, those related to participant, and second, those related to other external or environmental factors. Okay, first, let's look at the participant-related exogenous variable. These are issues that come up when the way participants are chosen or behave during the study can affect the result. Two main examples here are, first, selection bias. This happens when participants are not fairly or properly assigned to different groups. For example, if all the high-performing students end up in one group and the weaker student in another, the result won't be accurate. So, ways to reduce the selection bias include the matched group design, random assignment, and also statistical control. Matched group pair the participant based on their characteristic like age and also gender. Random assignment give randomly putting people into groups that can help to balance out the differences. Statistical control, using a statistic to control for any differences between groups. And second, the mortality. This isn't about people dying. In such, a mortality refers to a participant dropping out before the study ends. If more people leave the group than the other, it can mess up the result. So, basically, participant-related exogenous variables can create a lot of bias in the data. If we are not carefully, that's why it's important to plan properly from the beginning. Now, let's move to the other type of exogenous variables, which are related to the environment or external condition. This can happen during the study and affect how participants respond or perform.
Here are few examples. First, of history effect. This effect external event that happened during the experiment, like a news event or natural disaster, that could influence the participants' behavior. Second, maturation effect. These are natural change over time. For example, in a long-term study, participants might improve just because they have matured or gotten used to something, not necessarily because of the treatment. Third, testing effect. Sometimes, the process of testing itself can affect how participants respond. For example, main testing effect, interactive testing effect. Main testing effect, if someone takes a test multiple times, their earlier answer might influence later ones. Interactive testing effect is earlier response might change how they see or react to the independent variable later on. Number 4, instrumentation effect. This refers to changes in way measurements are taken. If the tool or method we use to measure data changes might way, it can change the result. So these external factors are tricky because they are often out of control. But by being aware of them, we can try to minimize their impact and make our experiment more valid. To wrap it up, exogenous variables are like hidden influence in research. They can sneak into our experiment and mess up our finding if we are not careful. By understanding both participant-related and environmental exogenous variables, we can planning how to reduce them, and we can make our study much more stronger and more reliable.
Next type of experimental design is randomized block design. This design is used to reduce variability by grouping similar experimental units into blocks. Each block retrieves all treatments, allowing the researcher to isolate the effect of the treatment from the effect of the block. The structure for the block first is independent variable, which is treatment. Its fare reduction 5 cents, 7 cents, and 10 cents. Second is blocking variable. Residential areas such as suburbs, crowded urban area, and retirement area. This area, each block are type is treated separately but reaches all treatment levels. Lastly, treatments are randomly assigned within each block to avoid bias. Randomized block design is used for reduced within group variability. Next, it helps isolate the effect of the treatment, controlling for blood-related influence. Lastly, it helps improve statistical power by removing unwanted variable due to the blocking variable. The last type of experimental design is Latin square design. It used when there are two blocking factors. This design helps control for two sources of variability, in addition to the treatment effects such as residential area and the day of the week. Latin square design used for efficiently control for two nuisance variables. Next, it saves resources such as favor experimental units than full factorial design. Lastly, it's great for agriculture, marketing, education, or transportation studies where multiple environmental factors may influence the outcome. There are two major types of validity. First is internal validity. It's determined of whether the effect is actual causes by the manipulation of treatments and not by others exogenous variables. Internal validity is referred to the extent to which you can confidently say that the independent variable, which is treatment, causes the change in the dependent variable, which is outcome. High internal validity means you are controlled by confounding variable and bias. For example, if you are testing a new teaching method and score go up, internal validity asks what is the method itself, or did student also get extra tutorial, or was the exam easy this time. Second is external validity. It determines whether the cause and effect relationship found in the experiment can be generalized. External validity concerns whether the result of your study can be generalized to other people, setting, time, or measure. High external validity means your findings are likely applicable in the real world. Example for high external validity is if a study in a lab show a product increase productivity, external validity asks, will it work just as well in our real office or factories? Last is compared between field experiment and lab experiment. First is field experiment. It's conducted in natural settings such as farm, school, and business. The advantage is its higher external validity. Its realistic context means more generalizable result. The disadvantage is first, less control, which is hardest to control external influences. Second is lower external validity. Its other variables may confound the result. Lastly, costlier and time-consuming. Logistics can be complex. For lab experiment is conducted in a controlled environment like a laboratory or simulated setting. The advantage is first, its high control, which is researchers can manage all variables tightly. Second is high internal validity. It's easy to isolate the effect of the treatment. Third, low cost, which is less variability and fewer resources needed. Lastly, easiest replication, which is its control the condition allow for repeatable result. The disadvantage is first, artificially, which is reactive error. An unnatural setting may cause participants to behave differently, which is Hawthorne effect. Second is demand artifact, which is participants may guess the purpose and alter behavior. Lastly, lower external validity, which is result might not apply to real world setting.
Okay, hi, my name is Melana Ashkimita Makaman. I am going to explain about measurement of variables in which about operational definition. Okay, so what is measurement? Measurement is the assignment of numbers or symbols to characteristics or attributes of objects based on predefined rules. In example, if you want to measure how happy customers are, you can't see it directly, but you can ask like, how satisfied are you on the scale of 1 to 5? To add on, measurement is like turning feelings, behaviors, or features into numbers so we can study them properly. Just like we measure height in cm, we can measure satisfaction in numbers too. Okay, secondly, what are we measuring? So we are measuring objects and characteristics. For objects, like anything you are studying, include person, strategic business units, companies, countries, kitchen appliances, restaurants, shampoo, yogurts, and so on. Then, back to the characteristic, we have examples of characteristic of objects, which are arousal-seeking tendency, achievement motivations, organizational effectiveness, shopping enjoyment, land, weight, ethnic diversity, whereas service quality, conditioning, effects, and taste. So the purpose of this is to understand the characteristic helps you decide what to measure and how to measure it. Okay, next is types of variables. There are two types of variable, which is objective variables and subjective or abstract variables. For the objective variables, each one lends itself to objective and precise measurement, and it also easy to see or count. For example, age, income, number of items sold. Then the other is more nebulous and doesn't lend itself to accurate measurement because of its abstract and subjective nature, plus exists in the mind or emotions and cannot be directly measured without interpretation. In example like job satisfaction, brain trust, emotional intelligence, and service quality. Therefore, while objective variables are straightforward, subjective ones needs careful operationalization in order to avoid bias. Okay, what is more is about operationalizing concept. So for the definition of operationalizing concept is reduction of abstract concept to render them measurable in a tangible way. Then, how it's done? It's done by looking at the behavioral dimensions, features, or properties denoted by the concept. For example, in terms of hypothetical like customer satisfaction could be operationalized through several questions about purchase frequency, ratings, or complaint rates. Okay, last but not least, we have several achievement motivations consist of 5 achievements which are driven by work, unable to relax, impatient with ineffectiveness, 6 moderate challenge, and 6 feedback. Okay, first, we see individuals who are intensely driven by work. These people often constantly work, prioritizing tasks over leisure. For example, picture an entrepreneur who checks emails during family dinners, unable to disconnect, then persevere despite setbacks, viewing failures as stepping stones. In example, think of a researcher revising a rejected paper 5 times until it's finally published. So next, they are reluctant to take time off, which is tying self-worth to productivity, which consider a manager who cancels vacation to meet deadlines, fearing falling behind. Like, why does this matters? This drive pulls high outputs but can blur work-life boundaries, leading to burnout if unchecked. Okay, furthermore, unable to relax, which are we encounter those who struggle to relax. Their behaviors include impatient with inefficiency, like a CEO who cuts meetings short to get to the point. Stress over small mistakes, such as a chef redoing a dish for minor presentation flaws, disliking slow peers, leading to micromanagement. Okay, in example, a software lead reassigning tasks from slower teammates. Then, having no hobbies, seeing leisure as unproductive. For instance, a lawyer who proudly claims, I don't have time for hobbies. So why this matters? Why this intensity drive results? It risks chronic stress and strained relationship. Okay. In addition, the next point is impatient with ineffectiveness. So basically, it fares under one's break when even small mistake occur and doesn't like to work with slow or inefficient people. Plus, seek moderate challenge is one of achievement motivation, like behavioral indicator. So prefer challenging over routine tasks, firstly like bored by repetitive work to seize growth opportunities. For example, a teacher volunteering to design a new curriculum, then request feedback, like users' input to calibrate performance. Values improvement. Okay, For example, a salesperson reviewing client surveys to refine pitches. Lastly, chooses management challenges. This is to avoid styles that are too easy, like no growth, or too high failure risk. As an example, an athlete competing in races slightly above their current skill level. Thus, this is for balanced ambition with realism, optimizing for sustainable achievement. Finally, seek feedback, which is ask for feedback on how the job has been done, like a junior lawyer requesting notes after a court appearance, and impatient for immediate feedback, like a developer choosing projects just beyond their skill level, then soliciting code reviews. So I think that's all from our group presentation. Thank you for watching.